2. It has the suppressive effect of 9 dragons' flame cauldrons. The huge shock force when the 7th grade medicine pill was formed had been greatly dispersed. Only a strong medicinal fragrance was emitted from the room, filling the entire building. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. Xiao Yan shook his sore shoulder, then gently pinched the medicine pill floating in front of him. The medicine pill was black and white in color. One side was cold like ice, and the other side was hot like fire. The black and white colors were constantly changing and merging, mysterious and unpredictable, as if yin and yang were constantly changing. A Tier 7 medicine pill requires so much time. If I were to refine a Tier 9 medicine pill, I wouldn't need to spend a year and a half. After carefully putting away the yin-yang profound transformation pill, Xiao Yan let out a sigh and stood up from the ground. No wonder the requirements to become an alchemist were extremely harsh. One needed to be a genius amongst geniuses. A single pill refinement would require such a long time. If the origin qi was insufficient, he was afraid that he would die of exhaustion midway. I told Wu Shaoqi not to look for me for the next 2 days. It seems like she has indeed grown up. If she was in the academy, she would have knocked on the door a long time ago. He opened the door of the room, and just as he was whispering to himself, a pleasant voice suddenly sounded. "What are you saying about me? You, what are you doing here?" He suddenly looked up and saw Wu Shaoqi. The latter had her arms crossed over her chest and was looking at her with a mocking gaze. For the matter of sealing the monster, Martial Uncle Mi has been in seclusion since yesterday. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Martial Aunt asked Sister Shi to bring you to the secret realm to cultivate. Yesterday, I came to see that you were busy, so I didn't disturb you. Today, the pill fragrance dispersed and I knew that you had finished concocting the pill, so I came. Wu Shaoqi wrinkled her nose and took a whiff of the pill fragrance that had yet to dissipate in the room. It had a kind of rejuvenating effect. "How about this? Let's go now." Hearing this, Xiao Yan's eyes lit up and he impatiently said, "You have to be careful. If Martial Uncle Mi finds out about this, I'm afraid that even Martial Aunt will be scolded." Rolling her eyes, Wu Shaoqi muttered and left with Xiao Yan. "Don't worry. No matter what, I won't embarrass you." Xiao Yan nodded. Under Wu Shaoqi's lead, they quickly arrived at the main hall that they had previously arrived at. Shi Na was already standing in front of the hall with her hands behind her back. She wore a green dress and a purple belt was tied around her waist. Her black hair was tied together and her temperament was ethereal. It was completely different from Wu Shaoqi's liveliness. "Let's go." Glancing indifferently at Xiao Yan, Shi Na's red lips moved slightly and she spat out 2 words. After that, she soared into the sky and headed towards the direction of the Chongming Hall's secret realm. "If you go, you have to listen to Sister Shi. Don't touch anything." Seeing that Xiao Yan was also about to move, Wu Shaoqi hurriedly said. Sometimes, this guy's brain would heat up. Who knew what he would do? "Help me say thank you to Grandma Shi." She nodded. The starlights under Xiao Yan's feet surged. With a flash, he had already disappeared without a trace. Wow, this is Starlight Silent Step? He's actually so proficient in using it, it seems like he's even faster than Grandma Shi. Wu Shaoqi couldn't help but exclaim softly as she watched the 2 of them leave. Her eyes were filled with envy. Both of them had reached the monarch cultivation, but she was still stuck at the emperor cultivation. Although she had the inheritance of Flame Lord and her strength was improving every day, compared to Xiao Yan and Shi Na, it seemed like she couldn't even withstand a single blow. Swoosh! In the clear and bright sky, 2 long beams of light streaked across the sky, leaving 2 faint marks on the ground. With their speed, they arrived at the secret realm of Chongming Hall in just the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. Below them was a huge valley, like an upside-down bowl. Before they even got close, they already had an extremely hot feeling. Steam was rising from the vast lava lake in the valley. From time to time, there would be pillars of lava soaring into the sky. In such a harsh environment, occasionally, one could see a few white bones around the lake. They were birds that passed by. Being hit by the surging lava, they instantly turned into white bones. The temperature difference between day and night is huge. It's all right at night, but I don't dare to stay here during the day. When do you plan to start cultivating? Her pretty face turned red because of the heat wave. Shi Na wiped the sweat on her forehead and her voice was still calm. At this time, just nice. On the side, Xiao Yan did not feel any discomfort. He felt the restless fire element origin cheese in the air and was delighted. He then lowered his body and landed in the valley. He stood in front of the magma lake. The heat wave that came at him was enough to burn an emperor cultivation warrior's skin and flesh, but to Xiao Yan, it did not hurt him at all. This place is simply the best place to cultivate the Vermilion bird technique. Taking a deep breath, Xiao Yan didn't hesitate at all. He sat cross-legged in the air and quickly entered into a state of regulating his breathing. This fellow. Above the sky, Shi Na's pretty face was flushed red. Her beautiful eyes were wide open as she looked at Xiao Yan below. She shook her head in disbelief and hurriedly left this place. In front of her, the hot air that surged out of the magma lake was enough to burn the mountain rocks, but strangely, it had no effect on the surrounding valley. The raging fire attribute origin cheese contained within were continuously absorbed into Xiao Yan's body, and were refined in a tyrannical manner. When he opened his eyes again, the sky was already filled with stars, and the temperature in the air had dropped by a lot. It was much better than during the day. That little girl came to see you once. Then she left. She should be not far away. The Xiao Ao's voice rang out at the right time. Xiao Yan was slightly startled when he heard it. He gently nodded his head and extended his palm. A drop of golden blood the size of a fingernail slowly appeared. The blood essence of the lipid sunbird and the comprehension of the Vermilion bird technique just now. I wonder how many forms I can cultivate. Xiao Yan mumbled to himself. With the protection of the Xiao Ao, he was quite confident in his surroundings, so he directly swallowed the blood essence in his hand into his stomach. In the next moment, a burning sensation of pain that entered his lungs swiftly rose within his body. In an instant, it spread throughout his limbs and bones. With the suppression of the 4 monarch flames, the lipid sunbird's blood essence did not cause much damage to Xiao Yan's body. In addition to the yin and yang origin qi in his body, this blood essence quickly merged into his body. Vaguely, a faint shadow of a vermilion bird appeared behind Xiao Yan's back. Screech! In the night sky, a full moon hung high in the sky. When it reached the middle of the sky, a loud and clear bird cry suddenly sounded. In the next moment, as if it was reborn from the flames, a huge vermilion bird spread its wings and soared into the sky. Vermilion bird scarlet feather. A low and deep voice sounded, and then fiery feathers shot out in all directions. Each feather blade was like a cold ice blade, piercing into the cliff in all directions and creating visible cracks. The mountain rocks that had survived the surging heat waves of the lava lake were cracked by the fiery feathers. This kind of destructive force was enough to easily break the defense of an emperor cultivation. The first 2 forms of the Vermilion bird technique were movement techniques, and compared to the Starlight silent step, they were useless. The third form was an extremely powerful attack technique, and its power was comparable to the peak-level holy arts. It was comparable to the third form of the Azure Dragon arts, the Azure Dragon Sky Slash. Such a big movement naturally alerted Shi Na, who was not far away. She looked at the 4 valleys that were attacked by Xiao Yan. The cracks on them were clear. It could be seen that Shi Na was standing in midair and was at a loss for words for a moment. She had also cultivated in the secret realm of Chongming Hall. The powerful holy arts had caused almost invisible damage to the cliff. But now, the numerous cracks on the cliff had frightened her. Her throat moved slightly as she looked at the sky. Xiao Yan leapt into the air. Behind him, a huge vermilion bird phantom blotted out the sky and the sun. The starlight was blocked, casting down a fiery red darkness. Grandma Shi is right. To be able to become the #1 genius of the same generation in the star field, his strength is definitely not something I can compare with. A touch of disappointment surged into her eyes. Shi Na clenched her 5 fingers tightly. The 4 great academies in the star field had almost included the most outstanding young disciples in the star field. Among them, there was no lack of young master from the 4 great families. To be able to stand out among this group of people, it was not just luck. There were also countless geniuses in Mingan divine domain. At her age, she could be considered to be looking down on her peers. However, she was still far away from those true monstrous geniuses. But there's a lot of distance. Oh woo! A soft sound that resounded through the sky spread out, shaking the magma lake below. Xiao Yan spread his arms and legs with a comfortable expression. The shadow of the vermilion bird behind him dispersed and welcomed the hot wind that blew over. It was full of enjoyment. Miss Shi, thank you for your help. If you are not in a hurry, can you wait until tomorrow? Seeing Shi Na standing in the sky in the distance, Xiao Yan quickly came back to his senses and gently cupped his hands towards the former. He said sincerely, "It's fine, just do what you want to do." Shi Na's expression eased up and she gently nodded her head. Her voice was gentle and it made people feel like they were bathing in a spring breeze. "Thank you." Xiao Yan was delighted in his heart. He sat cross-legged in the air and the yin-yang profound transformation pill appeared in his hand. Without hesitation, he swallowed it. After successfully cultivating the Vermilion bird technique, what he needed to do next was. Before this, it was the integration of the yin and yang fused with the origin qi. Profound Emperor had obtained the perfect yin scroll from an elder of the Deacon sect. Together with the yang scroll that he had obtained from Lu Junyuan, he had finally gathered all the yin and yang scroll. The complete yin and yang scroll, for someone like him who had cultivated the yin-yang profound technique. It had an indescribable benefit. As for Xiao Yan, it was also extremely beneficial to the integration of the yin-yang fusion origin qi. When the yin-yang profound transformation pill entered his abdomen, a wave of hot air that burned his heart and lungs suddenly rose. In the next moment, another wave of bone-chilling cold air penetrated deep into his bone marrow, just like the 9 layers of ice and fire. It stung his nerves and caused his meridians to swell and crack. The yin-yang fusion origin qi in his body also violently merged at this moment. The 4 origin chains rumbled, and even caused the surrounding space to tremble. Standing on top of a tall mountain, the bright moon hung high above her head and stars filled the sky. The moonlight shone down and decorated the magma lake below, making it clear and moving. Shi Na placed her hands behind her back and a warm breeze blew over, blowing her pure white dress. Her black hair fluttered along with the wind, revealing a beautiful and pure side face. She was like a fairy from the highest heavens, beautiful beyond compare. Shi Na's eyes were like limpid autumn water as she quietly stared at Xiao Yan below. The space around the latter's body buzzed and even caused the space to tremble. In this silent night sky, it was extremely ear-piercing. On the surface of the lake, there were waves of shock. The waves were sparkling, but there was a scene as beautiful as a poem and painting. The corner of Shi Na's mouth could not help but reveal a trace of a smile. This kind of scene had not been seen in many years. She did not expect that there would be such a beautiful scene in the secret realm that was called the Fierce Land. Shoo! His mind was immersed in the moonlight. Shi Na's brows suddenly moved and a trace of sharpness suddenly appeared in her eyes. With a flick of her finger, the jade-green long sword was already tightly held in her hand. A cold chill surged out from the blade of the sword and forcefully forced back the surrounding warmth. In that instant just now, she seemed to have felt an extremely hateful aura appear here. On the other side of the lake, another person has trespassed into the secret realm. Shi Na's pretty face was ice cold. She and Xiao Yan were situated in a relatively remote area in the valley. Due to the combination of yin and yang and origin qi, the aura of the latter was suppressed to the extreme. It was likely that person did not notice it either. Otherwise, he would not have so brazenly intruded this place. Shi Na's pretty eyes swept over Xiao Yan. She mused for a moment before she gently waved her hand. Dozens of symbol papers that were inscribed with symbols landed around the former. These symbols were all placed with powerful monarch skill. It would automatically be unleashed when encountering danger. Although it was not very effective, it was enough to buy time. After that, Shi Na's white clothes fluttered and she quietly left like a fairy from the 9 heavens. She held a 3-foot-long blade in her hand. Under the moonlight, her figure was incomparably pure and holy. In the middle of the lava lake, a human figure stood in the air. The human figure was wrapped in a black robe, and it was difficult to distinguish its shape under the night sky. The blood color in the human figure's eyes was thick, and he stared at the lava lake below without saying anything for a long time. This kind of seal, it's not difficult to undo it. After a long while, a hoarse voice sounded. The black figure muttered to himself. Just as he was about to continue speaking, a gentle killing intent quietly came from behind. It was as clear as star moon and as scorching sun. Boom! The black figure coldly snorted. He suddenly swung his sleeve and easily neutralized this killing intent. A huge explosive force spread out and sent Shi Na flying. Her delicate body landed on the cliff in the distance and she could not stand stably. Who are you? How dare you barge into the Chongming Hall's secret realm? After calming the qi and blood in her chest, a layer of solemnness surged into Shi Na's eyes. She continued to berate in a cold voice. This fellow in front of her, his strength was far superior to hers. With just a casual wave of his sleeve, his killing intent was neutralized. Little girl, pretend you didn't see anything. Leave as soon as possible. I won't kill you. The black figure's voice was hoarse, and two blood-red eyes appeared on his face, which was covered by a black robe. Impudent! It's you who should leave. Shi Na gritted her teeth. She stepped into the air and pointed her jade-green sword at the black shadow. She did not step back at all. Do you have that ability? The black shadow smiled coldly and suddenly stretched out his right palm. His 5 fingers were clenched and the air seemed to have been crushed. Continuous explosions sounded out and it was like an invisible force that sent Shi Na flying once again. Her delicate body crashed into the cliff and the qi and blood in her body churned. It was extremely painful. If you don't want to die, then leave. Your strength is too weak. When you go back, your sect will not say anything. The black shadow glanced at Shi Na, who was holding onto the cliff, and stood up. The black shadow was indifferent. He turned around and faced Shi Na with his back and did not speak anymore. Brilliant sword heart. The green long sword in his hand shot up to the sky like an ink flood dragon. Shi Na's eyes were cold. The origin qis around her whistled and her slender fingers moved in the air. It seemed to form numerous illusionary figures that could be seen with the naked eye. The blade of the green longsword was surging with a spiritual glow. Countless sharp sword energies were condensed and seemed to pierce through the void. They caused the origin qis in all directions to vibrate and communicate with the heaven and earth origin qi. With great power, it smashed down towards the black shadow in front of it. Stubborn fool! The black shadow was unmoved. He shook his head lightly and raised his right hand. His 5 fingers suddenly clenched tightly. In the next moment, the surrounding space seemed to have collapsed. Countless sharp sword qi were destroyed by the collapsing space. This move, which was comparable to the holy arts, didn't have any effect at all. It dispersed, and everything returned to normal. I will say it one last time. Do you want to die or live? The black shadow remained unmoved, like a devil god standing between the heaven and earth, unstoppable. Shi Na clenched her silver teeth. The arm that held the dark green long sword trembled continuously. The move that she was proud of actually did not have any effect at all. For the first time, she felt powerless. You are neither human nor ghost. What are you? While her mind was in a mess, a low voice sounded. Shi Na looked back. Xiao Yan was striding over. His cold eyes looked at the black shadow in front of him. His imposing manner was vast and mighty. As he spoke, he protected the black shadow behind him. With Xiao Yan's appearance, the black figure in the distance no longer remained indifferent. He slowly turned around, and his blood-red eyes swept across the former. His voice was cold and gloomy. Who are you? Are you here to question me? Xiao Yan raised his brows. Just as he was about to speak, Shi Na's cold voice sounded, Xiao Yan, Xiao Yan. What? Hearing this, Xiao Yan couldn't help but shake his head. This silly girl, she still differentiates herself so clearly at this time. I really don't know what she's thinking. It's too late. If he dares to show himself, he must be prepared to die. The black shadow seemed to hate Xiao Yan very much. Cold light shone in his blood-red eyes. He suddenly stretched out his hand, and a dark black origin monarch qi rolled out crazily. It seemed as if it had shattered the space, and it moved stealthily like a poisonous snake. Clang! Xiao Yan did not have the time to talk to Shi Na anymore. He waved his hand and the blue flame ruler appeared in his hand. The golden red light on the ruler rotated, accompanied by the sound of metal colliding. The origin qi and the blue flame ruler collided with a loud sound. A huge impact force came and Xiao Yan's wrist trembled. The huge ruler in his hand was almost unable to be firmly grasped. Heavenly Sovereign. 2 words flashed across his mind. Xiao Yan's expression turned serious. Even a peak monarch cultivation wouldn't be able to do anything good to him. It seemed like this guy in front of him must be a heavenly sovereign level warrior. In a split second, the black shadow had already rushed forward and stretched out a hand. His 5 fingers were like a sickle that was wrapped by a black aura. It carried a dense coldness as it attacked Xiao Yan's chest, intending to kill him with a single strike. As the black aura surged towards him, Xiao Yan's expression changed, and a trace of confusion flashed across his eyes. It was as if he had seen this aura somewhere before, but he didn't dare hesitate. His body trembled, and the Starlight Silent Steps Vermilion bird technique displayed an unparalleled speed. Even when facing a Heavenly Sovereign's attack, he still managed to dodge it. While dodging, Xiao Yan didn't care about anything else. He grabbed Shi Na's slender waist, and with great difficulty, he turned around in the air. Only then did he manage to land in a safe place. The place where the two of them were standing had already been corroded by the black qi, and the indestructible rock had cracked into pieces. Sorry. Xiao Yan came back to his senses and smiled embarrassedly. He hurriedly let go of the hand that was holding Shi Na's small waist and stared at the black shadow that had stopped in the distance. The black shadow's qi slowly spread out, but it gave Xiao Yan a feeling that he had seen it before. Shi Na pursed her lips and did not say anything. She was not a pedantic woman and naturally knew that Xiao Yan was trying to save her. She did not feel any disgust towards the latter's actions. Are you confident that you can defeat him? After a moment of silence, Shi Na suddenly opened her mouth. Her voice was cold, but Xiao Yan could hear a trace of hope. Difficult. Xiao Yan did not hesitate even though he had cultivated the Vermilion bird technique. He wanted to fight a heavenly sovereign who had no idea how strong he was. However, he was dreaming. To be able to become a heavenly sovereign. At least, he was one of the few in his generation. If he could defeat him so easily, I don't deserve to be called the Lord of Heaven. Let's try our best to hold on. I just sent a message to Grandma Shi. Master should be coming to save us. Senior, am I? Hearing this, Xiao Yan's mouth revealed a slight bitterness. They had come here to hide from Mi Ning and let him know about all of this. He was still alright. At most, he would just be thick-skinned and leave. With the Starlight Silent Step and the Vermilion bird technique, even if he was a heavenly sovereign, he wouldn't be able to do anything to him. However, it would be difficult to vent his anger on Shi Na and Wu Shaoqi. Now is not the time to think about these things. Shi Na seemed to have seen through Xiao Yan's thoughts. She smiled bitterly and said straightforwardly. Xiao Yan nodded. He could only suppress this thought in his heart. After which, he looked at the black figure in the distance in a puzzled manner. For some unknown reason, although the latter's aura was astonishing, he did not take any further action. I have something to attend to, so I won't play with you guys anymore. Suddenly, the black shadow spoke coldly. His tone was extremely cold, and it made people's hearts tremble. It was as if he was facing endless mountains of corpses and seas of blood. Remember, your strength is just like an ant. Next time, it will be the time for the Chongming Hall to turn into ashes. Without waiting for Xiao Yan and Xiao Yan to speak, the shadow's body began to turn illusory. Xiao Yan fixed his eyes on the shadow, and his face was filled with shock. It was as if the man in front of him wasn't a real being, but a form of qi. Who the hell are you? Hearing this, Xiao Yan couldn't care less. With a furious shout, the four-colored flame in his palm surged and turned into a giant flaming hand. It tore through the void and smashed towards the shadow. 3. Monarch Flame? Interesting. The black shadow stood motionless on the spot, and his figure became even more illusory. When he saw the flame unleashed by Xiao Yan, greed flashed across his blood-red eyes, but he just smiled coldly and didn't attack. Swoosh! The monarch flame's large hand smashed down. It was just about to touch the black figure's body when the latter had suddenly disappeared. It appeared that he had never been here before. There was not even the slightest bit of aura remaining. Why did you leave? Shi Na's pretty eyes widened in anger. She clenched her silver teeth. She also heard the words of the black shadow without missing a single word. Naturally, she was filled with hate and fear. Being targeted by such an unknown expert was a disaster for the Chongming Hall. Miss Shi, did you notice when you fought with him? Xiao Yan asked in a hoarse voice after a moment of silence. He was an illusion. What do you mean? Shi Na came back to her senses and looked at Xiao Yan, confused. That's right. Your attack hit his body but penetrated it. Xiao Yan took a deep breath. There was a puzzled look on his face. No, the gap between us is too great. His attack didn't even have the chance to land on his body before it was broken by him. Shi Na laughed bitterly and her tense nerves relaxed. Only then did she realize that her entire body was covered in cold sweat. Hearing this, Xiao Yan nodded and did not say anything. The doubt between his brows was even heavier. When the black figure had attacked him earlier, he could clearly feel that the latter was a living body. However, the monarch flame giant hand just now had attacked his left body. It had clearly hit his body, but why was it that it did not have the slightest effect? Who knows what kind of strange technique this strange person will cultivate? Moreover, he left so suddenly. What is he planning? After pondering for a long time, Xiao Yan decided not to bother about it. He turned his head and looked at Shi Na. The latter's beautiful eyes glanced over and the corner of her mouth lifted slightly. Her red lips parted slightly, but she did not make a sound. Xiao Yan smiled helplessly. He could see Shi Na's lips. He shrugged his shoulders and gave the latter a modest smile. His body flashed and he had already left this place. Shi Na only said one word and left. Instead of being blocked by Mi Ning here and causing an unnecessary battle, it was better for him to leave first. As long as he did not see him, he could only release his anger. It was impossible for him to vent his anger on Shi Na. Xiao Yan was still quite afraid of Mi Ning. He had already declared that he would kill him in front of his grandmaster. He was afraid that he would be even more unscrupulous in this place. If a fight really broke out, the opponent was Shi Na's master, her grandmaster's disciple, and had saved Wu Shaoqi's life. He wouldn't be able to kill him. Hiding in a hidden spot in the valley and concealing his aura, just as Xiao Yan let out a sigh of relief, a ray of light rushed over from afar. In the next moment, the cold-faced Mi Ning arrived at the center of the lake. When he saw Shi Na alone, he raised his brows. He said in a cold voice, "Where is she?" Shi Na finally heaved a sigh of relief when she saw her master. She giggled and said, "Where is he?" The guy who broke into the secret realms suddenly left for some reason. I told Grandma Shi that Master would come and save me, so he left. He must be afraid of Master's reputation. Upon hearing this, the dark and cold expression on Mi Ning's face didn't change at all. A trace of cold killing intent flashed across his eyes. He said in a deep voice, "I'm asking Xiao Yan. Where did he go? He dared to intrude into the Chongming Hall's secret realm. He must not be forgiven." 2 inches Xiao Yan? I didn't see him. At this moment, Shi Na could only feign ignorance. She had heard from her grandmaster that her master wanted to kill Xiao Yan. At this time, she naturally did not dare to reveal the latter. Didn't see him? Mi Ning smiled coldly and looked around. The hot wind at night was blowing his empty left sleeve. In his eyes, there was an unconcealed killing intent. Master. Shi Na was slightly shocked when she saw this. She was really afraid that Mi Ning would find Xiao Yan. The fire attribute origin Qi here is very strange. If it wasn't for the special flame, it would never have caused this kind of feeling. After saying that, Mi Ning looked at Shi Na with a cold gaze and said with a ferocious expression, "Bastard, how dare you lie to me? I will settle the score with you after I find Xiao Yan." Master. Shi Na's heart trembled. She looked at Mi Ning in disbelief. Her beautiful eyes turned slightly red and tears almost flowed out of her eyes. It had been so many years, but the latter had never said such a thing to her. Her words were like sharp blades that pierced into her heart. Damn it! In the distance, Xiao Yan had a panoramic view of Mi Ning's every move. He cursed in his heart. This guy was clearly trying to catch him. He didn't care about the enemies that had disappeared. Master, the enemies that disappeared just now seemed to be planning to seal the monster. Please pay more attention. After calming her emotions, Shi Na's expression became gloomy. She softly said what she had thought of. Her delicate body moved slightly and without even looking at Mi Ning, she flew towards the direction of the Chongming Hall. In the dark night sky, a drop of clear tears fell from the corner of her eyes and blended into the cool night sky. To her, her master was now a stranger. His character was ruthless, and he no longer had the slightest bit of warmth from before. Mi Ning sneered at Shi Na's reminder and turned a deaf ear to it. He then sat down cross-legged and the origin Qi around his body surged. In an instant, it filled the entire valley. Now is not the time to fall out with this old fellow. Xiao Yan clenched his teeth in the hidden spot of the valley. The monarch flame in his eyes surged and he could clearly see the surging origin Qi in the air. The vast aura of a heavenly sovereign level had almost stirred the entire world, and was searching for Xiao Yan. He let out a cold laugh. The hidden technique had completely concealed his Qi, and with the double protection of his soul, even a heavenly sovereign wouldn't be able to find his exact location. The starlight under his feet surged. Without anyone noticing, Xiao Yan had already left this place. With the help of the Vermilion bird technique, his speed was twice as fast as before. In the blink of an eye, he had already left the Chongming Hall's secret realm. After a while, Mi Ning stood up with an ugly expression. He had searched the entire valley, but he didn't find any trace of Xiao Yan's qi. He ran away? After a long time, Mi Ning let out an angry snort. He turned around and looked at the center of the lake. After that, he waved his sleeve and strode away. Shi Na and Xiao Yan left one after another. Not far from the Chongming Hall, Xiao Yan caught up with Shi Na. The latter had a heavy heart and did not say a word. Xiao Yan shook his head and did not pursue the matter. He obediently followed Shi Na into the Chongming Hall. Silly girl, your master must have been muddle-headed for a moment. How could he bear to scold you? In a few days, he might be able to see things through. In the hall, after listening to Shi Na's bitter complaints, Grandma Shi let out a bitter laugh. She had talked to Mi Ning more than once, but the effect was minimal. The latter seemed to have never heard of it. Regarding this, there was nothing she could do. This time, it has dealt a huge blow to him. If I can't accept it, I might end up like this in the future. Sighing, Grandma Shi went forward and touched Shi Na's hair with pity. The latter's expression was desolate and her eyes were red. She resisted the urge to cry. Her most respected master's current appearance made her feel afraid. On the side, Wu Shaoqi curled her lips and had a helpless expression. She looked at Xiao Yan, who was beside her, and could not help but speak in a low voice. You are quite smart. You took the opportunity to escape. If you were discovered, even Grandma Shi would not be able to save you. Xiao Yan shrugged and didn't say anything. With his current strength, if he didn't use the four-colored fire lotus and fought with other heavenly sovereign-level warriors, he would have no chance of winning. Besides, for some reason, he felt that Mi Ning was a little strange. To be able to become a heavenly sovereign warrior, no matter if it was his mind or spirit, he must be extremely powerful. Otherwise, how could he overcome so many tribulations and lose an arm? It was indeed a nightmare, but with Mi Ning's mind, his personality wouldn't change drastically. Reporting to the palace master, Elder Mi has returned. While the qi in the hall was frozen, a voice full of energy was heard from outside. This was a disciple of the Chongming Hall. Although there were only a few of them, they were all very strong. Just this strength alone was enough to make all the major powers have to face the Chongming Hall. Got it. Grandma Shi replied indifferently. She shook her head and said, All right, Mi Ning has been very busy these few days for the matter of sealing the monster. As for the other matters, let's wait until this matter is settled before we talk about it. Yes. Shi Na nodded. She naturally knew the importance of sealing the monster to the Chongming Hall. Xiao Yan, how is your cultivation? Seeing that Shi Na had returned to normal, Grandma Shi turned her head and looked at Xiao Yan. Thanks to Miss Shi, I have made some progress. Hearing this, Xiao Yan grinned and took a stroke. That's good. You don't need to go to the secret realm for the next few days. The seal is weakened, and I'm afraid that monster will cause you some harm. It won't be too late to go after the seal is broken. Grandma Shi nodded her head in relief and said in a deep voice. Xiao Yan understands. Xiao Yan smiled bitterly in his heart. He didn't dare to disobey Grandma Shi's words and could only nod his head in agreement. Fortunately, he had successfully cultivated the Vermilion bird technique. It was only a matter of time before he mastered the Four-Spirit Emperor technique. He didn't need to be in such a special environment. By the way, I heard that you were also an alchemist. Can I ask you something? Grandma Shi glanced at Wu Shaoqi and said seriously. If you have anything to say, just say it. Xiao Yan will naturally do his best. Hearing this, Xiao Yan was stunned and immediately said in a deep voice. That's good. Wu Shaoqi has obtained Flame Lord's inheritance and has entered a bottleneck in her cultivation. This is also a sequela of cultivating the Fire Emperor scripture. She needs to use external forces to break through this bottleneck. Therefore, I would like to request you to refine a medicine pill for Wu Shaoqi. I hope you won't reject it. Nodding her head, Grandma Shi said softly. Grandma Shi is too serious. Senior Wu's matter is my matter. Xiao Yan naturally won't decline. Xiao Yan smiled and said without any hesitation. Wu Shaoqi, who was at the side, raised her eyebrows. There was a trace of gratification in her eyes, and then she smiled sweetly. She was quite happy. That's good. Later, I will get someone to give you the required medicinal ingredients and medicinal formula. Of course, I will not let you work for free. How long have you been a monarch cultivation? Grandma Shi glanced at the smiling Wu Shaoqi and said with a light laugh. Only half a year. Xiao Yan thought for a while and said vaguely. He had spent a lot of time from the Deacon sect to the southernmost place. Even if he calculated, it would not be more than half a year. That is to say, you haven't come into contact with any formations yet. Your soul power is so powerful. Learning some formations will be very useful in battles. Grandma Shi stared into Xiao Yan's eyes and said slowly, My husband has a close friend named Ding Chengyuan. He is also an acquaintance of mine. He lives in the middle domain and is worthy of being called a formation master. If you want to learn it, I can introduce you to him. Quote, 1 inch of formation master? Xiao Yan's eyes lit up when he heard this. He was extremely envious of the various abilities of formations. From the lowest level of the Yunluo Academy's Spirit Source formation, to the higher level transportation array, and to the great defensive formation that guarded a city, if he could master this technique, the power that it could display wouldn't be any weaker than a powerful monarch skill. Ding Chengyuan's name is also famous in the world of formations. If you have this talent, learning a technique will be beneficial to you in the future. Seeing the excitement on Xiao Yan's face, Grandma Shi nodded slightly and said, When Black Nether Emperor invaded the Yunluo Academy, my husband asked Master Ding to design the grand formation in the outer court. Upon hearing this, Xiao Yan couldn't help but exclaim in his heart. That strange grand formation could temporarily allow Su Ziyang to be on par with Black Nether Emperor. Before this, he was surprised by the mysteriousness of this formation, but he didn't expect it to be created by the great Master Ding mentioned by his grandmother. Thank you very much, Senior. Xiao Yan didn't stand on ceremony and thanked him directly, agreeing in a different way. However, I have to remind you that you shouldn't bite off more than you can chew. You should know that you have extraordinary potential in the field of alchemy. If you don't have any special talent in the field of formation, you must not delve too deeply into it. Otherwise, your talent in alchemy will be wasted. Grandma Shi's eyes revealed a trace of a smile as she stared at Xiao Yan and said, I will follow Senior's instructions. Xiao Yan said with a serious expression. He naturally understood this kind of simple reasoning. However, if there really was a chance, he naturally couldn't let it go. Star Domain, capital of chaos. The destruction of the dark world was like throwing a stone into a calm lake. After a slight splash of water, the dark world regained its peace. After such a long period of time, a new force had taken its place. The top 10 of the chaotic crowd had undergone a major reshuffle. There would never be a lack of ambitious people here. However, no matter how the situation changed, no one or faction could touch the Oblivion Realm and the Mystic Emperor Realm. The two were like high and mighty saints who did not participate in the affairs of the world and no one could touch them. You're really good. Asking Xiao Yan to go to the southernmost place is obviously to let him see Senior Luo. In the Heaven Pillar Peak of Yunluo Academy, the great elder, Lao Yuans, stood side by side with Profound Emperor. After listening to the latter's words, Lao Yuans smiled and said while gnashing his teeth in anger. You have been in Capital of Chaos for so many years. How dare you barge into the Deacon sect? Is this something a normal person can do? Didn't we all come out alive? Profound Emperor wasn't angry at all. He just smiled indifferently, then snorted coldly and said, But that brat, for the sake of the saintess of the Deacon sect, he almost angered me to death. Young people have vigorous blood and chi. There's nothing wrong with doing this. Lao Yuans turned his eyes and laughed. He didn't take it to heart. The reason I came back this time is to enter a deadly seclusion and break through to the Heavenly Sovereign. The topic of conversation changed. Profound Emperor's expression turned serious. His eyes were full of vigor as he spoke with an unquestionable tone. That's good. Heaven's surmounting monarch is also looking for an opportunity to break through to the Heavenly Sovereign. If all of you can break through to the next level, it will be a good thing for the capital of chaos. Sighing, Lao Yuan said worriedly. The ancient sovereign has been reborn and settled in the middle domain. The three dynasties have already started to work together in secret. The middle domain is a vast place, and it will surely affect the star domain as well. After a pause, Lao Yuan spoke again. The various powers in the star domain are also restless. With the Thundercloud clan as the leader, it seems like they have already started to act. The storm is brewing. Perhaps, the capital of chaos will be affected sooner or later. Thundercloud clan is just a clown. Do you really think that the 4 major families can't do anything to it? The truly terrifying one is the ancient sovereign. On the way back from the Mingan divine domain, countless powers are discussing about the ancient sovereign. No matter what, the heavens of the middle domain will change sooner or later. What I'm most worried about is that the soul demon will take advantage of this opportunity to interfere. They have been gone for such a long time, who knows what they are planning. Lao Yuan stomped his foot. He had a complicated expression on his face. If the incident with Black Nether Emperor happened again, no matter who it was, there was nothing they could do about it. What are you afraid of? The sky will fall. Aren't they the ones who have to bear the consequences? Profound Emperor smiled indifferently and pointed at the sky. Lao Yuan smiled bitterly. Does the heavens still have the strength to restrict the soul demon? Let's not talk about this anymore. Before going into seclusion, that brat still asked me to take a look at his 2 wives. How are those 2 little girls now? Profound Emperor's eyes were like a torch as he looked towards the direction of the inner courtyard and spoke in a composed manner. The 2 of them are cultivating with Bai Ying now. Although they are students of Realm and Valley, their strength is comparable to some elders. Perhaps, they will reach the Emperor cultivation in a short period of time. Speaking of Xuan and Kai Lin, Lao Yuan's couldn't help but click his tongue in wonder. These 2 girls seemed to have a special cultivation environment. Their rapid progress made Grandma Bai feel that it was unbelievable. Since that's the case, I can't do anything else. If their heavenly weapons are interested, I can help them strengthen them. After pondering for a moment, Profound Emperor spoke leisurely. His weapon forging technique was ranked 2nd in Capital of Chaos. No one dared to claim to be number 1. Even a mid-grade heavenly weapon could enhance its power by a lot. It's rare for you to make a move. These 2 little girls are really lucky. Lao Yuan grinned and said in a somewhat mocking manner. It's because I owe that brat a favor. Profound Emperor shrugged his shoulders. Last time when Black Nether Emperor attacked the Yunluo Academy, he appeared and refined quite a number of Yunluo Academies for the Yunluo Academy under the extortion of Elder Qi. This time, because of Xiao Yan, he planned to spend a lot of time and effort to strengthen the heavenly weapons for the 2 girls. Chongming Hall. The fragrance of sandalwood lingered in the room. Xiao Yan held his breath as he stared at it. His 10 fingers danced in the air as medicinal herbs flew into the cauldron. After that, they were quickly swallowed by the tiny dragon formed by the monarch flame. It turned into a wisp of pure medicinal liquid and fell into the bottom of the cauldron, emitting a clear and peculiar phenomenon. The medicine pill that Wu Shaoqi needed was called the fire-breaking pill. A grade 7 4-star medicine pill. Its name was ordinary, but it was an indispensable medicine pill for cultivating the Fire Emperor scripture. Previously, the Yin-Yang Profound Transformation pill was at the peak of Tier 7. Therefore, although this medicine pill was refined for the first time, it was undoubtedly much easier compared to before. The effects of different medicinal properties of the fire-breaking pill were different when refined from different medicinal ingredients. With the handiwork of his grandmother, the medicinal ingredients that he brought for Wu Shaoqi, the herbs that had been used for hundreds of thousands of years could be found everywhere. Even Xiao Yan could not help but tremble when faced with so many rare herbs for the first time. Fortunately, the quantity of medicinal herbs was sufficient. After 2 sets of medicinal herbs were destroyed, after nearly 5 days, this fiery red medicine pill that looked like a dragon eye finally came out of the furnace. The moment it appeared, the enormous flame almost burned the entire room into ashes, attracting everyone's attention. Fortunately, Mi Ning was concentrating on his cultivation in order to seal the monster, so he didn't witness this grand occasion. Otherwise, with his attitude towards Xiao Yan, it would definitely cause a huge battle. In the following time, Wu Shaoqi consumed the fire-breaking pill and started her seclusion. The fiery qi in the place of seclusion soared to the sky. It was as if there was a flame sovereign king patrolling the surroundings. It was a majestic sight, as if an ancient mighty figure had reappeared in this world. Xiao Yan calmed his heart and began to master the 4-spirit sovereign technique. He did not even forget about the complete integration of the yin and yang harmonizing origin qi. He advanced with each passing day. Cultivation had no time. Very quickly, a month passed in the blink of an eye. It was the day when the Chongming Hall sealed the monsters.